Hi, everyone. It's Mike Todd from Transform Philanthropy. And today I have the privilege of having a conversation with Kevin Moorhead from Charitable Impact. And Kevin is going to say hello and tell us what he does.
Hi, happy DAF Day, Mike.
Happy DAF Day, Kevin. Thank you. You're the first person to wish me happy DAF Day.
I'm the senior director for cause funds at Charitable Impact, and I guess we'll spend some time talking about what that means.
That sounds good. No, I appreciate that. Just to lay the table a little bit. So donor advised funds, because I see cause funds as a fantastic use case, I guess we could say, for donor advised funds. A donor advised fund is a giving tool, giving vehicle that allows a donor to donate assets or money today, get the tax benefit today, and then they have advisory privileges on where that money should be sent, which charities over time. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about cause funds. And I think you do a phenomenal job at this. And it's a brilliant use of donor advice funds. So, Kevin, why don't you give us your answer as to just what a cause fund is?
Well, just before that, so Charitable Impact, as most listeners probably know, is a large donor advised fund operating in Canada for the last 14 years. We've had about 1.5 billion flow across the platform, so it's been significant in size. But I got to know John, who was the CEO of Charitable Impact, just socially a few years back, and he started to share with me a very common recurring theme in his conversations with donors, that they really know what they care about. That's easy, but they don't always know where to give with impact.
Mm.
With more than 80,000 registered charities, where do you go to make an informed choice about how to give effectively? And there's a gap there. And so that sparked my interest as well, because I come from a background in international development work. I spent 16 years with the Aga Khan Foundation, and I saw very similar issues. Although in my case, it was with big international donors like the government of Canada, the government of the United States. They also didn't really know how to give with impact. And our solution was, with Aga Khan, was introduce those people to local experts. It's not rocket science, but find people who actually know what they're doing on the ground, who have a broad vision and can inspire those donors to give with confidence. And so John and I started talking about that, and we thought, well, that isn't that what's kind of necessary in the Canadian context too? What if all those DAF donors who are looking to give with more confidence, who don't really know where to give with impact, could be matched with causal experts, leaders in their field, who are inspiring individuals, highly credible, very networked, but importantly, have a plan, a measurable plan about how to achieve impact in a specific causal area, right? So cause funds is, in a sense, a tool to match those donors with those cause leaders. Now, of course, as you were saying with the DAF, it allows pooled funding. So it's a financial tool, but it's also importantly a social tool that allows people to connect, get inspired, learn from one another.
My question a few years ago to you would have been, well, how many donors really don't know which organization to
Mm.
choose and are more dialed into what it is they care about, but don't have an outlet for that in as far as a specific organization is concerned. And the longer I do what I do, I realize that more and more people are aware of something that concerns them in the world or something that they want to see changed in the world. And I think that number is increasing,
Mm.
but they indeed have difficulty perhaps thinking of a organization that's reputable and that they're aware of and that they know and that they would choose to give to. And it's fascinating to me that you have this situation where, oh, I'm really upset about an issue, or I really love an issue,
Yeah.
and I have some ability to give, and I want to do something about it. But what do I do? And I think up until recently, you're kind of on your own. I mean, you had to wade through those 80,000 organizations to try to find some. So, what is the split, do you think, between people who are motivated to do something and then are at a loss as to what the next step should be?
Well, I think everybody's motivated to do something, frankly. Everybody that I meet has
Mm.
something that they care about. I don't think I've been in a conversation with an adult or even a kid, frankly, who I've asked, hey, what cause really matters to you? there's always an answer, and there's always a really, really emotionally charged why.
Mm,
And we start from there. Then the second part of that question, look, there's a lot of savvy donors, and they, of course, they can identify charities within the causes they care about. I add those two words at the end, though, to my explanation about where to give with impact,
mm,
because it's a
yeah.
slight nuance difference. Um, Let me personalize it. I'm a donor, and I'm also working at Charitable Impact. I was on the doer side of things as well, but a personal case for me was when my friend Greg got diagnosed with ALS. I didn't know anything about it, but I think I'm a relatively savvy donor, and I started researching, right? So like every other donor, I had to start wading through online literature and trying to figure out through navigating tools and assessments. Like, my God, there's so many charities on
Mhm.
ALS. Even for me, I was at a loss. I was at a loss. I knew what I cared about. I knew what I wanted to support. I wanted to end this disease. And I struggled. I really struggled to figure out how to give with impact. So I don't think my case is unique. I think that a lot of people have had a similar type of experience, and cause funds is really a response to that. The problem is that people don't know where to go to
Mm.
give with impact. And our solution, again, is really connecting people with credible causal experts, inspiring Canadians who have a vision and a plan for change. So it's not just hold hands and hope for the best. What we do is we find people who really are at the forefront of their field, who can say with confidence, if you give us, our fund, $100 million, this is what we will do with it. These are the measurable indicators of change that we will pursue, and these are the charities that will help us get there. So what's interesting is that it creates basically like a mutual fund, like a portfolio of charities, much like stocks, that are ultimately going to deliver you a return on investment, social return in this case, but the return is also clearly measured. And that's an important part of a cause fund, that it's about measurable change, which is why we make the case that a cause fund should provide confidence to a donor like me in ALS. And we can get into that story a little bit more about how I took my frustration and helped to translate that into a cause fund. But now, because donors give to one central fund, it inspires kind of a chain of action that allows multiple organizations to work together towards a shared purpose. And that's quite exciting to see.
That's fascinating. I smiled because as you were talking, I automatically thought about the mutual fund analogy, and then you said
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
spent 12 years in my earlier career working in the mutual fund industry, and it's the first thing I thought of. So help me understand just a little bit more of the mechanics of that. So you have a causal expert slash portfolio manager of the fund. What kind of decisions are they making? How do I, as a purchaser of the mutual fund, as a somebody who's contributed from my DAF, what kind of information do I get? Just what are the mechanics of this process?
Yeah, so I guess just at the most basic level, let's call it the three-step process. So step one, define the plan. And in other words, what are the achievable targets you're going to hit? So let's continue the mutual fund analogy. If you come to me and a financial advisor, and I am not a financial advisor, let's be clear. So my analogy might be weak, but I would say, well, listen, Mike, I'll give you an 8 to 10% return year on year. That's my target, and everything I do for you is going to be based on that goal. So in the cause fund analogy, let's again take ALS. Okay, well, Mike, our target is to end this disease within the next 10 to 15 years. And everything we do is going to be aimed at achieving a set of milestones along the path to ending that disease. And I will give you periodic progress on how we're doing against that return. So that's step one. So what's the vision? What's the plan? Step two, allocate funds. So that's again, back to this mutual fund, which stocks am I going to pick to advance your goal of 8 to 10% return? Same in the charity side. Well, of all of the registered organizations across Canada, and in our case, actually in the ALS example, in America as well, different topic, but which ones are best positioned to create that impact in that time horizon that we're talking about? They select the best suited charities to realize those goals. So step one, create the plan with the targets. Step two, allocate the funding to organizations that are genuinely making contributions towards that plan. And then step three, report back. Again, much like a dashboard you might get from your financial advisor every month, where you have a beautiful set of charts and graphs and indicators. Like, here's how you're performing. The same thing would be for ALS. Here are the charities that were selected. Here's why they were selected. Here's how they're performing. And here's how your funds help to leverage other funds to crowd into this pool of impact, if you will.
I need to clear something up in my own mind. So your example, if you were a financial advisor, I would say, wow, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
But you said in your case, ALS, we're aiming to end this disease. That's pretty aggressive. You didn't say we're hoping to make things better. We're hoping to fund research. We're hoping to find new medications. No, you said hoping to end the disease. Now, I'm not going to. I don't want to put you in a box. But would all of the causal funds out there be that target oriented and that aggressive in what they're trying to accomplish?
Well, the answer is not necessarily. I mean, even with the specific wording of end ALS, once you dig down a layer, we do define it. And so ending ALS can mean finding a treatment that can halt progression or make it a manageable illness, right? So remember, HIV/AIDS in the 80s was essentially a death sentence. By the late 90s, it became a manageable illness that you could treat, and people could live long lives. So when we say end ALS, we do have measurable targets, and we define our targets. And so I'm glad you asked the question, because that is the baseline of any cause fund. And so even if you have some very, as you said, aggressive language, I want to make sure it's defined in a measurable,
Mhm.
certifiable way that people can say, okay, was progress achieved or not, right? So it does have to have that level of specificity.
Wow, that's helpful. Does the allocation to the stocks in the mutual fund change? Do you buy, sell, add, subtract, or is it pretty static?
So I would, this is an important clarification that it's not the cause funds team at Charitable Impact that makes those decisions, just to be clear, it's the
Hmm.
causal leaders.
Yeah.
And so in the case of ALS, there's ALS specialists. I'm not one of them who make these decisions. And in the case of another cause like youth mental health or addiction, they would decide. And so I wanted to preface my answer with that so that it doesn't sound too waffly, because the answer is it depends.
Sure.
So I would say that causal leaders who own a cause fund, who administer a cause fund, which again is a DAF, have the ability to sub in and out charities
Hmm.
as they see fit, whether they're performing, not performing, and there could be some concerns about an individual charity. There's maximum flexibility, which gets back to DAF Day about why the DAF is such a powerful and, I would say, critical tool to make a cause fund work, because it's the architecture behind the scenes that enables cause leaders to make these kinds of decisions in an agile way.
You mentioned in your description leverage. And can you clarify for us? You're talking about generating matching funds, bringing in more money to the cause from other sources?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to get into a restaurant with a lot of other cool people, right? Like, nobody walks into an empty restaurant, right? I think that especially bigger donors have an incredible opportunity to inspire other people to give to the cause that they care about, because they can show momentum. If they put in, even if it's, $10,000, $20,000, that act can often inspire so many other people to start jumping in on that cause. And at the end of the day, I like to see cause funds as actually more of a social than a financial act. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is, yes, it's called a cause fund. It is about giving, of course. But what's really interesting about it to me in my experience so far with it is that it really does inspire a sense of human connection, right? The decisions are made by people, not algorithms. They're by cause leaders who are storytellers, who are inspiring, and they extend an invitation to you, to everyone, to talk to them, to talk to each other, and to start bringing other people along for the ride, right? So when I say
Mm.
leverage, it's not only from a financial perspective, it's leverage from a social perspective as well, to feel part of a community that cares about a cause.
The question I just thought of a few minutes ago when you were talking, as you know, there's a interest and a growing interest in impact investing, generally philanthropically, and it's becoming a more and more important issue for donor advised funds. So, with these causal funds, are you talking about investment dollars as well as outright grants to some of these charities and nonprofits? Do you have a mixture of both? Is that a possibility?
It's absolutely a possibility.
Mm.
It's something I'm personally very excited about. I think that the world of grant making and impact investing need to coexist in a more coordinated way. And although I don't have a great body of evidence within my own context to draw on now, we are actively pursuing opportunities to combine those two worlds. And again, the way we do that is with a DAF, is that if you put in a lot of money into a DAF, like any bank account, you have the option to invest some of it. With the invested portion of your DAF, there's nothing to stop you from making impact investments. So let's say you're interested in women-run businesses. You can invest in female-owned businesses in theory with your DAF, and then any revenue you make out of that would ultimately go back into your current account at your charitable bank, with which you can make grants that are complementary to those businesses. You can imagine, even in a specific geography, there could be businesses that are creating jobs, creating an environment of prosperity, and that directly supports charities in that community to reach out to some of the more vulnerable people, perhaps, and raise them up as well. So yes, I'm kind of passionate about this topic, and I think there's huge potential for a DAF to really marry those two worlds.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, not telling you anything you don't know, but the excitement of 100% of my philanthropic portfolio going to work on a cause, as opposed to the 5% that gets granted out of a foundation, and the 95% is invested who knows where. That way of thinking is just going away,
Yeah.
and it to me it really leverages what you're talking about, and specifically, I mean, that applies to my own DAF. I want it all going to work, whether I'm giving it away or investing it. But with a cause fund, I mean, it's really exciting, where this is the ALS cause fund, to use your example, and all of the money is
Yeah.
pursuing reaching the goal that you stated. And whether that's through grants or investments that may reoccur, et cetera, it almost doesn't matter. The point is the impact it's going to achieve. And so that must really apply a lot of horsepower to what you're trying to do.
Well, I think it should, right? I mean,
Mm.
ALS is an interesting one because unfortunately, again, I got too close of a view to that disease, but there are a lot of technologies such as eye recognition software that enables people who cannot use their hands or fingers to type with their eyes. These type of technologies are advancing rapidly, and even like wheelchair technologies. There's all kinds of home-based technologies that can make the lives of people with ALS better. Why not invest your DAF in startups that are making lives better through new, exciting innovations in the private sector, and know that if any one of those innovations goes 10x, that the money's actually
Mhm.
going to go back to support patients through grants anyway. So yes, it is such a compelling reason to support a cause fund through a DAF. because you get those twin benefits of capital
Mhm.
investment and grant investment.
Fantastic. That's so good. Um, do you? I'm curious about the demographics of the people who contribute to the fund, and I'm not sure if you've done much research into that. But do you find these are existing DAF holders who are like, oh, now I have an outlet, or is it
Mhm.
bringing new people into the fold? Both? Like, how does it break down?
Yeah, that's a great question. Perhaps surprisingly, the answer was initially new people were the
Mm,
majority of givers initially. In the ALS example, we had great success in the hockey world. And so we had the NHL and all 32 teams kind of get behind the super fund. And that brought in a lot of hockey fans who most of whom have probably never heard of a DAF to this day. They
mm,
might not even know that they gave to a DAF, right? Which is fine because they gave to a cause. And the DAF enabled that to happen. What we're seeing though increasingly now is that DAF holders are taking interest and they are now catching up, if you will, to say that, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting model because
mm,
what we're able to do is support this portfolio of charities. But another way of saying that is supporting a movement of change
right.
within a causal area. So even if somebody wants to keep their funds in British Columbia, they can do so. They have the flexibility within our model to do that, but they can simultaneously be supporting across Canada, across North America, movement to end the disease, and they can feel part of that change.
I could ask questions all day. I'm not going to do that. I want to thank you for sharing your insights, and I'm going to press you one more time. So, what do you want us to take away from this conversation, other than the fantastic information you've given us? I mean, I suspect, you know me. I'm very passionate about the DAF. I suspect this tool has created the environment where what you're doing is possible. And I think about, well, what else might be possible? But what do you want to leave us with?
Well, I love the DAF increasingly as a really important reminder of what philanthropy can do and what it's all about.
Hmm.
So again, if you indulge me, I've been doing some informal polls in my friend groups about what do you think of when you think of philanthropy? And the answer is invariably some version of, well, that's really, really rich people just giving money away, right? But philanthropy isn't that, right? At its heart, it's philanthropos, right? Which is love of humanity. It is
Hmm.
the act of love through giving your time and your resources. And again, a DAF was set up perhaps as a tool for wealthy people to give effectively, but it is increasingly being used as a tool for all people to join movements of change and to put their love for a cause into action. And that's a very powerful notion that if we want to see DAFs in the mainstream, we can't view philanthropy as just the domain of the wealthy few. Philanthropy is very much an act of love for society, and it's an open door for everyone to participate in. And so anybody who wants to learn more about cause funds or engage more in cause funds, we want them to come with that mentality that you want to be part of something bigger, part of a process of change.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. We're having this conversation on DAF Day, the first ever
Yes.
DAF Day in Canada, and I'm struck
Congratulations.
by thank you. I'm struck by the irony. I guess maybe that's not the right word, but earlier this morning I was on another webinar, and it was about how small, specifically small charities doing good work, but just maybe one or two or three people, how they could benefit from attracting money from donor advised funds. And a great conversation with an organization that has done a fantastic job. And I pointed out then that the DAF really was the great equalizer, because they were asking me, well, how can small charities benefit? And I said, you know what? Don't call yourself small anymore, because what you're doing to attract DAF money is better than most large charities I've seen. So it's a great equalizer. And I just think it's so fascinating that the same base tool is helping this 3-person charity do amazing work and can also be the source code for $100 million fund looking to make headway in a very serious disease. And it's exciting to think about the possibilities. And I just was struck by that. Let me thank you for your time today and for your very thoughtful answers and the work you're doing. I think it's exciting, and we're going to have to drop in again someday and check on your progress and hear what you're up to lately. But thanks so much for your time today.
Well, thank you, Mike. I also just want to say thank you for getting DAF Day up and running. And I mean, of all the people I've met in the last few years, you're probably the most knowledgeable on DAFs. And so thank you for your insights, your wisdom, because whenever I have a question on DAFs, you're the person I go to. So yeah, thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Thanks so much. And we'll see you again.